Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and today we're going to have a nice episode that overlooks all of the different soccer seasons that have been occurring, the European soccer scene itself. We're going to have long conversations with Joe Grau about Manchester City's recent run of form and Liverpool struggles this year, where if you listen back to my podcast back in September I did with Will Sheeran, I had Manchester City winning the league. I had Manchester United in second place, Liverpool struggling, Chelsea not really fitting it together. So I had it almost all right except for the fact that West Ham are sniffing around the Champions League places, and I thought they would be relegated. But we will have Joe Grau on in a little bit. But first, today's open. We have to talk about Gus Malzahn going to UCF. Now, I'm taping this open on Monday afternoon, and I woke up this morning with the news that UCF was hiring Gus Malzahn, and my first reaction was a little bit muted just because of my, the response of how it went at Auburn, how it ended, a lack of evolution there at Auburn. And then I thought more about it, watched the press conference, the introduction press conference he did at UCF, and I thought about it more, and I realized that was the Michigan fan in me talking a bit more. And what I mean by that, obviously, is that Michigan, like an Auburn per se, is in the shadow of their biggest rival. There are a lot of Power 5 programs like this, right? You have Texas right now in the shadow of Oklahoma. You have Michigan in the shadow of Ohio State. You have Tennessee in the shadow of either Alabama or Florida, take your pick, or Georgia. It doesn't really matter for them. You have other programs like that across the country. Oklahoma State and Oregon and Oklahoma, South Carolina, in the shadow of Clemson. There's more and more programs like that than there are not. And Auburn right now is in the biggest shadow of Alabama. And you can extend that to the fact of their biggest rival also being Georgia, one of their biggest rivals being LSU. So at the end of the day, you really look at it, and Auburn's just a really tough job to win at. And Malzahn, of course, had one there. He almost went to a national title game and came very close. Won Jameis Winston completion and Kelvin Benjamin, away from winning the national championship in 2013, the last year before the playoff. He's won SEC titles there. He was an SEC champion when UCF beat his Auburn team in 2017 to cap off their undefeated season. So Malzahn's done really well there, but it's just Auburn. You almost can't win at Auburn eventually, and even though he lasted 8 years there, which is a long time, for a non-national title winning coach in this era of college football, it was muted reaction at first to me, and then I realized more and more, when is the last time a national title, not winning, but attendee, and of course Malzahn was the offensive coordinator when Cam Newton's, not freshman year, but Cam Newton's Heisman winning year back in, I want to say 2011, when Auburn didn't win the national championship. So he does have a national title on his resume, to make that clear. When is the last time, though, a coach has been to 2 national title games, even one as an OC, one as a head coach, gone to a Group of 5 program? I posed that tweet out, and I don't have the most active college football fans on my Twitter sometimes, but 1984 BYU can't count because they actually won the national title that year, so that doesn't make that's irrelevant. But I challenge you to think about that, and I think that's part of the framing now that we have to think about as well, is that we all have Power 5, teams, even us that go to Group of 5 teams. Every fan in Ohio is still an Ohio State fan, whether you go to Cincinnati, whether you go to Miami of Ohio, whether you go to Bowling Green, for instance. All of those teams still end up rooting for Ohio State in the end. And then in Michigan, it's split Michigan State. Here in Florida, you have your UF fans, you have your Florida State fans, so they don't want to admit it right now. And you have your University of Miami fans as well. So I think sometimes we look at these hires and think of them in the Power 5 standpoint. But at the end of the day, the fact that UCF is able to get a coach that's actually better than their previous coach in Josh Heupel, and as I talked about in the last college football offseason podcast, I was not a fan of Josh Heupel whatsoever. And to that standpoint, I would actually take Malzahn over Heupel. I think Tennessee should have looked at Gus Malzahn. The more you think about it, right? Why didn't Tennessee hire Gus Malzahn? He got fired pretty early in the cycle, and as you mentioned in today's press conference, he was able to take a break and reflect a lot. But isn't Malzahn a better coach for Tennessee, in that standpoint, with the rebuild, give him more time than someone like Josh Heupel? That's bizarre. I mean, because Malzahn, this was coming, right? It's just been rumored he would get fired for 4 years just because of fit or diminishing returns or whatever like that. And at the end of the day, yeah, his offense may not be the most evolutionary because he's the one that started the big spread offense move with the aforementioned Cam Newton season, like I mentioned earlier. UCF just needs more than 5 plays. Run up the middle, deep post, and the slant. We need more than that, and I think Malzahn's going to bring that, especially with Dylan Gabriel there. So even though I was a bit tepid at first, I think I'm in on the higher now with UCF. And he mentioned how very complimentary of it, and he mentioned how it's a top 20 job, and I think that's the proper perspective to look at because UCF is in a giant talent hotbed. We can snap up all the 3-star, 4-star recruits that UF, Alabama, stuff like that miss out on, and I think it's going to be a good chapter going forward, and especially having the head coach and an AD aligned there. So I just urge people that I see on UCF fans on Twitter, stuff like that are kind of dumping this, that he wasn't the greatest recruiter, blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't matter. UCF isn't going to recruit in the top 50 ever. No group of 5 team does. They just don't. You don't have that built-in knowledge. I mean, UCF is born as a university in 1963. This isn't, we don't have the decades age institution like Alabama does to be able to recruit and smash like that. So it doesn't really matter. That recruiting aspect, at least. We need innovation with play. We need to maximize the most of our players. And one reporter asked about the pressure cooker here at UCF because some of our fans have unrealistic expectations. And I mean, at the end of the day, Auburn fans are the craziest in the SEC when their 3 biggest rivals are are Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. And they expect to go 11-1 and win the SEC West title every year. So Gus Malzahn's going to do just fine. I like the hire. And, good for UCF. I'm excited to see where they go into the future. And now joining me on the Assist podcast is a good friend. He's been on here a couple times now. I think this is Joe's 3rd appearance, but we're going to talk about some soccer here, and it's a little deviation from the normal soccer people I have on. That's because his Manchester City are murdering the English Premier League right now. I believe they just won their 14th or 15th match in a row, and it is Joe Grau to join me here to talk about the English Premier League, about 23, 24-ish games through this odd, no fan edition pandemic season. Joe, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm not bad, I mean, I just really diving back into soccer now. The football's all over with, and it's what a season it has been. Topsy-turvy for a lot of clubs here, but I mean, I can't remember. I should have listened to who I picked to win the title. I believe I was high on both Manchester clubs. I should have looked. Now I think about that, I should have looked back and listened to that, but I didn't. And I don't know. I mean, City are just City, right? I mean, it should be the one constant that we knew was going to be Pep Guardiola and Manchester City in a pandemic season, right?
Yes, for sure.
So walk me through. Right, we'll start. We'll leave with Manchester City, right? Why not? They are 7 points clear of Manchester United at the table with a game in hand. We'll talk about Liverpool a little later, but they're in 4th, Chelsea 5th, Manchester United and still in 2nd. Manchester City were at times, when I would check the table, much lower than that, out of the Champions League places at times, whether it was due to weird fixtures, such like that. Walk me through this season, being a City fan after relinquishing the title of Liverpool last year and trying to build back up that title challenge.
Yeah, so in the beginning of the season, I feel like we just were not very sharp. So, in my opinion, we were relying on Kevin de Bruyne way too much. And Pep had a quote saying, we're moving too fast. We need to get in our spaces and walk more, which that just sounds weird. But what that really means is we need to have the ball do more work. So we did exactly that. The ball's doing more work and we're now getting goals because in the very beginning of the season, we just could not score like we have prior years. But defensively, we were still good, thanks to Ruben Diaz and John Stones. But now that we're getting goals, we thrashed Liverpool, we thrashed Tottenham. It doesn't really look like we're going to lose because we got Everton and Arsenal and Gladbach. I think we're going to win all those games, I'd hope, but we will see.
Yeah, and I think really, you mentioned reliance on De Bruyne. De Bruyne's a great player, right? But in past years, he's always been able to split time with David Silva, stuff like that. The attacking duties at least up there, and someone that's really emerged on the scene. And I don't want to say emerged because he's had significant airspace, at Borussia Dortmund, and even in his early run in Manchester City, but had faded into the background, was Ilkay Gundogan. And I believe I saw yesterday he has 9 goals in 9 games now. Where did that come from? Is it different type of position, perhaps playing them, another innovation, or where do you see from that evolution of him from his time from early Manchester City days?
So when we first signed him, I was like, why are we keeping playing him? Because he did not start off very strong. He's just kind of there. He didn't really do anything great, but he didn't do anything bad. Wasn't noticeable at all. But this season, I want to say after we tied West Brom, that's when everyone started to pick it up. So he started picking it up massively. He's been outstanding. And if he keeps it up, I think he can challenge Bruno Fernandes from Man U for Player of the Year because he's just that good. But another person who's also really emerged, which is not as noticeable because he doesn't have the goals. Well, he scored yesterday, but Rodri. So he's been really good as our pivot, and he's been very impressive after the wake-up call of tying West Brom.
Yeah, and it does sometimes take those type of games, right, to be able to go through and push through with tactical innovation. It just surprised me to see Gundogan doing that. Rodri obviously coming over from Atletico makes a lot more sense there in that 6th position. So it's interesting you mentioned Bruno Fernandes, of course, lighting up for a Manchester United team that I don't think many people thought would be in second. I did. I know that for a fact. I was high on them. I'll take a win for that one. I will not take a win for some of my other predictions I had, but regardless, it's just crazy to see that type of thing with City again. And it's almost not. I can't say it's a switch, right? Because Liverpool have beat them out last year, so but. Just in that sense of a wake-up call for a defining match like that, and to West Brom, a team that is in 19th place and has only 13 points. I gave them too much credit there. With one of those being earned today, actually, against Manchester United, ironically enough. But regardless, it's just interesting to see that type of evolution. And De Bruyne's been injured for missed some time as well, if I'm correct. And also, I will say Sergio Aguero being out most of the year as well, the star striker.
Yes. De Bruyne got hurt, I want to say in the middle of January. I could be wrong, but his injury was 4 to 6 weeks. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, we are screwed. So, but obviously Gundogan stepped it up a lot. So he's kind of taking that role as the playmaker, and so is someone else who has been very impressive is Phil Foden. Phil Foden has been absolutely lights out, and it is really amazing to see since he is a player that City has developed and has just been working on him ever since he was a young boy, and now he is killing it at the highest level.
Yeah, the rise of Phil Foden is just incredible over the past couple of years because they almost slowly strung him along. You got to see bits and pieces of it last year, right? And now this season he's fully broken out into a stud player for them.
Yes.
So it sounds like you're just title or bust, and you're 7 points clear, both Manchester United and Leicester City, and you have a game in hand on both those teams. Liverpool are 13 points back, and you still have a game in hand. So it almost looks like the title is wrapped up here. Am I allowed to say that with 15 matches to go?
I still say no because anything can happen because there's not really many bad teams in the Premier League. Everyone's competitive, so anything can happen. But it does look like we are heavy favorites. So I will say that.
So this goes back to the perennial question of almost Pep's time at Manchester City. The defining characteristic is the Champions League, right? So yes. I know Aguero will be coming back, right? What's the timeline for him coming back?
He is very close to being back in the starting lineup because for the game yesterday against Tottenham, he was on the bench. So He is fit. He is just not starting yet.
Okay, gotcha. So you mentioned you have Mönchengladbach in the round of 16. I mean, City will be heavy favorites to go through in that tie. What is your
Yes.
expectation now for Champions League when you have Bayern Munich, Robert Lewandowski still being the best striker on the planet? I'm not even going to throw Barcelona in there with Messi, but I mean it is Messi, and Messi has been City's kryptonite in past years. PSG
Yes.
looking strong as well, and obviously some other clubs around as well. Juventus and did Real Madrid Real Madrid made it through? I'm being an idiot. Liverpool,
Yes.
who knows?
Barely.
Maybe now that Jurgen Klopp's conceded the title, where do you see? What is your realistic expectation for City as a Champions League contender coming up here with the return of the round of 16?
So based off of form right now, I think we're the best team in Europe because we just don't concede goals. But knowing our history in the tournament and Pep's history in the tournament, I could see us going out in the quarterfinal. It honestly would not surprise me, but I'm really hopeful for it because that's the trophy we need to get the respect that we need, because everyone's like, oh, oil money. Oh, you just buy your players. I'm like, yeah, that's true to an extent, but you also have to get them to play together. And to be the best team in Europe by winning the Champions League, that will really cement us as like legit. Not saying we're not legit, just like into that elite tier of clubs, because that's the only thing that is keeping us from being in that elite tier of clubs.
Right, and I mean, I think too the oil money and stuff like that argument's pretty dumb when Real Madrid and Barcelona just spend 100 million euros on whichever player they see fit and then don't care about fitting them into their team each year. I mean, that's just my perspective at this point now. I mean, the money's money at the top of the league, right? It's what you have to do. And I mean, it's not like you guys are the worst defenders. PSG is in the same exact position where they're desperately looking to cap off the Champions League. And of course, they play Barcelona on Tuesday, and this is releasing on Tuesday, so they're playing later this afternoon. And Neymar's injured for the first leg, which of course I don't ever root for injury, even if it's Ohio State, but I mean,
it's just very convenient
with the way Barcelona has been kind of playing recently. Like, I'm happy Neymar's out for that tie, that's for sure. So, I understand that completely. So, I want to switch gears a little bit though. Let's talk about the rest of the table. I'll set you up here. I'll give you for the biggest disappointment category so far, right? About, 23 is a little over halfway through the season. I'm going to give you, I'm looking at the table, 5 clubs. All right, and you can either rank them or you just give me one, and we can talk about the others at a different point. So, biggest disappointment: Liverpool, 4th place, 13 points off. Chelsea, 14 points off in 5th place of the table. Tottenham, after starting hot, is in 9th, and they are, I'm trying to do math, 4 points off of the Champions League spots. Arsenal, 10th place, after securing a win over Leeds today, which they almost blew, by the way. And then
yes.
Sheffield United in 20th place. Which of those 5 is the biggest disappointment to you?
I want to say Chelsea, because of all the money they spent in the summer. They're not really better than they were last year. If you watch their games, Timo Werner cannot score to save his life. Kai Havertz he doesn't really impact the game at all. Ziyech, he doesn't really play much because he's hurt. He's also really good. They bought. Chilwell, he's okay, but the left back is not going to really affect the game too much.
Yeah.
They just spent so much money, and they're not really at a better point. Like, they just sacked Lampard a couple weeks ago. So I'd say they're the biggest disappointment. All of them pretty much are disappointments that you named, to be honest.
Yeah.
Liverpool kind of have an excuse because their 2 center backs both blew out their knees or had injuries that'll keep them out the rest of the season. So you can't really fault them for that. That's just bad luck with Van Dijk and Joe Gomez getting hurt. So that's understandable because they had to make adjustments by putting Fabinho and Jordan Henderson at center back. So obviously you're going to lose your strength in your midfield because you have to compromise for the back line. And it's also really hard to repeat historical seasons like they had last year. So I was not expecting them to kill everyone like they did last year, but I was at least expecting them to be top 3, which they still have a realistic chance of being third. I don't know if they can get to second place, but it'll be interesting to see how they do.
Yeah. And of those two clubs specifically, I think I kind of saw this for Liverpool. You know, they didn't strengthen. I want to say I had them penciled in for third. I did look it up. I did do a preview podcast for the season back with Will Sheeran back in the September-October range, so people can go back and fact-check me quickly on that one. But I remember distinctly saying Liverpool haven't strengthened because at that point they had not signed Thiago or Diego Jota, and still Jota's been injured, and Thiago hasn't been a seamless fit in the midfield. He may not be necessarily the Klopp type of guy, that 6. That you need. And, of course, I don't want to relate it to FIFA, but, you know, I had Thiago as my 6th in the Ultimate Team. It works for some games. It does not for others. It does not for others. So it has not, and sometimes that's the weird part about soccer, right? In the NBA, you just trade for players and then they figure it out, right? On the court. Soccer is not like that. It's a tactical fit. It's very complex in that range. I mean, look at Antoine Griezmann with Barcelona. I finally forgave him for having a good run of form after him being at the club for 120 million for not 5 years, for a year and a half, even though he's a star-studded World Cup winning striker. But that's just the fit part of it. So I don't blame Thiago for that. I don't blame Klopp for that, but they probably should have seen that coming type thing. Go ahead, chime in.
I feel like Thiago, he's not a Jurgen Klopp player, because I feel like when I see Liverpool, I see they're amazing at the counterattack. They're not really a possession-based team. So like when he was at Bayern Munich, he was really good at Bayern Munich because Bayern Munich possesses the ball, breaks you down that way. Liverpool, that's not really their style. So I honestly thought it was going to work well, but obviously it's not, because I don't think he's had any goal contributions this season, which is crazy to think about because he's such a good player.
Right.
Another thing about Liverpool, I think Firmino is getting exposed. He's really not that good. I think they need a better striker. Mm-hmm. Like, they need to play Jota more. I know he got hurt, but he's been really good for Liverpool. Yeah. I think Firmino is not the true number 9 striker that you need. He's more of a center attacking mid. I don't think he's going to get the job done at striker for them in the future.
Yeah, if you play him as more of a deeper lying center forward, or not deeper, shallower, towards the midfield center forward, or basically a cam, like you're saying, a number 10. He makes a lot of sense in that position, but as an out-and-out striker, he's not the type of striker that you need to win the league like that. But my point is, like, with the Virgil van Dijk stuff as well, of course, Liverpool fans are going to yell that, yes, the best center back in the world's injured. That's what happens when you have a 3-year run like this. Injuries pile up, So like the Golden State Warriors, after all their playoff success, stuff like that, the injuries pile up. I mean, they didn't win the league 3 years ago, but they went to the Champions League final, then they won it, and at the year after, and then they had a long run with the almost nearly invincible, with the longest unbeaten run for a while, and not the longest, sorry, Arsenal won a full season. But the point is that just like it's taxing, and it sucks that it's Virgil van Dijk, sure, and that the center backs are really struggling. Joe Gomez out too. But, I mean, that's part of the reason that happened. That's why I didn't pick them to win the league this year, because just the fatigue ends up setting in, and the hunger isn't there anymore, especially when you bring in new blood, when that new blood like Diego Jota is injured. The Chelsea thing, I kind of saw this coming too. It wasn't a thing with Frank Lampard, but it's like everyone was penciling them in for top 3 type season. And I know some people who might be listening to this are like, well, what's the difference between 3rd and 5th? Well, Champions League is top 4. And when you're battling out with the top 6 clubs in England, it is like those differences do matter. And as we talked about, Frank Lampard got fired already. Coaches get fired over those type of differences. But it always just seemed a lot to try to fit in. The midfield's very crowded, right? You have Jorginho, N'Golo Kante, who is so far off his peak form. You have Kovacic still playing. Then you added Kai Havertz, who seems to me is just being played out of position. I mean, his best position is a 10, right? That he was playing at Leverkusen. Yeah. And that is not occurring in whatever formation that's happening. Now, granted, Thomas Tuchel has taken over and has gotten some good results early on. So maybe he'll go ahead and figure that out. But I always felt like this is going to be a weird transition year for Chelsea to where, even if they miss the Champions League, they're going to come roaring back, and next year might be the year they take off, if they're in the Europa League, something like that. But I didn't think Chelsea were going to be, and then I love Timo Werner as a player as well. You mentioned him, but it's the same thing. It's just the shape isn't there right now.
Yeah, it's honestly crazy. Looking at their signings, they have a lot of people that can play center attacking mid, I've noticed. So Havertz, he plays that position. Mason Mount, he's probably best at that position.
Yeah.
Hakeem Ziyech, he's also really good at that position. And obviously, if you have all three of those people on the field at the same time, which they're good players, but I don't know how that would fit to be an effective. I don't know how that would be effective if all of them are on the field at the same time, because they're all the same player, essentially. They're all good at being the center attacking mid.
Right.
So I don't know.
Especially Mount and Havertz. I feel like those are the two they've tried the most in those type of positions, in the 8 and the 10, and it just doesn't work.
Not at all.
So, a little bit of a transition. Again, we'll go with, I'll give you a couple clubs that have surprised me at least, and we can touch back on some of the other clubs I mentioned. I just wasn't that surprised that Tottenham or Arsenal struggling. I mean, Jose Mourinho is Jose Mourinho, especially with some of the injuries they've had as well. Biggest surprise. So, I'll say Leicester in third place and 6 points clear of Liverpool. West Ham 6th. Everton 7th with 2 games in hand on the teams above them, and only 3 points off the Champions League spots. Aston Villa 8th, and then that's what we'll go with. Those are the 4.
I'm gonna say West Ham.
Yep,
is the most surprising, because last season they almost got relegated. They were very close to getting relegated, and now they're in 6th place and they're playing teams well. It's not like they're just getting killed by the big 6. Like, they play them well. They might not get the results all the time, but they're always good games. So I think that is, like, they played Man U this week in the FA Cup, and that was a good game. It went to extra time. They play them all well, and it's crazy how they almost went to the championship last year, and now they're contending with the better teams.
Yeah, I've always been a big Declan Rice fan. He doesn't have any goals this year, but still just playing every match for them so far in the Premier League, in the center mid there. Big guy. I believe he plays the 8 style type of midfielder, but big fan Declan Rice. Aaron Cresswell, too, from outside back. He'll be picked up by a big club here coming up. 5 assists on the season, leading them. I agree with you. I think West Ham is for sure the big shock, because I figured Aston Villa would take a next step. I mean, they also barely survived last year, but Villa's a club with resources. Yes. Jack Grealish is a legitimately great player that could slot in on most clubs in England and a lot of teams in the world, therefore. Starting 11 as a cam. He's fantastic, and it doesn't surprise me to see them in the top half right now. Above Tottenham, maybe, but still in the top half with a player of Grealish's quality in there. And then if you have someone, too, like an Everton, right? Oh, and sorry, just shout out to Ollie Watkins for already crossing the 10-goal mark, and Jack Grealish, 6 goals, 10 assists, casually. Right in there. So Villa really loving those two. And then Everton, to me, so they're in 7th. They're still 2 games in hand, and I believe they're actually playing Fulham right now as we speak.
They're losing 0-2.
Well,
right
there
now.
You go. So they're not picking up points from the 18th place team. Not a great look, Everton, as I'm about to compliment you. But you have players like DLC, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, right? And, James Rodriguez coming over there on, or James Rodriguez, I should say. My apologies. Coming over. Was that a buy or was that loan? I can't remember.
Rodriguez, they bought him.
Okay, there you go. And Calvert-Lewin.
I want to say they bought him.
Calvert-Lewin taking the next step with 13 goals in 20 games, pacing them. And Lucas Digne coming over from Barcelona with 6 assists. So, just Everton, I feel like they've been steadily building to a type of, even though they're in 7th, they're within 3 points of Liverpool, which is kind of crazy to think about with 3 matches in hand. This type of steady build, steady, they spent some money, and it wasn't too long ago with Tim Howard's Everton that they were sniffing the Champions League every now and then. So I think it makes sense for them to build it up to this height.
Yeah, I saw them based off of what they did in the offseason. I saw them being more of a contender because they got Doucouré from Watford. He was arguably their best player, super good midfielder. And they got Alon from the Italian league, and he's also very good. He's like a pivot, a 6. So I saw the influx they put into their midfield. I'm like, they can be good. Like, they're going to surprise some people. So,
yeah. I think, too, we have to give a shout-out to Leicester, because the fact that neither of us picked Leicester when they're in third, 6 points clear of Liverpool, only 7 points off the top, it's not a slight to them. It just shows that Leicester has more than, I believe they came in 5-6 years ago, right? And obviously they won the league with Jamie Vardy leading the charge up front and stuff like that, and Vardy still leading the charge, but they just beat Liverpool over the weekend 3-1 in a pretty, they scored 3 goals in 7 minutes. So the fact that Leicester kind of have catapulted into way above the traditional top 6 of Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, and the Manchester clubs, and they're right in the thick of it every year in the Champions League. They barely missed the Champions League last year, but the fact that they've been able to retool, Vardy's still leading them on the charge, but they have players now like James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans they bring in and plays really well. Ndidi has come on the scene of late, and Kasper Schmeichel obviously in goal. The fact that they've been able to build this type of team where it's sustained success to where top 4, top 5 finishes every year, and you're finishing above, therefore, 2 of the biggest clubs in the league every year, like this right now, it's Tottenham, Arsenal, is kind of remarkable. That sustained success under no less Brendan Rodgers is really crazy to me.
Yeah, they're very impressive. I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain top 4 this year because they don't really have that depth that the other teams have, but they're very interesting to watch, and they play well. They're 6 points clear of Liverpool right now. They both played 24 games. So I don't know if I see them doing it, but they're very impressive.
Yeah.
They're a fun team to watch.
For sure. And I keep mentioning the point gap because, usually with this type of year, this style of year, you have a lot of separation that start to build between the top 4, top 5, something like that. It's not present here right now. So you have City 7 points clear, then you go down, it's 46, 46, 40, 39, 39, 37, 36, 36, 34. So after their victory today, Arsenal in 10th at 34 are really only 6 points behind Liverpool. Now, of course, Liverpool have been struggling to the point to where that's possible. But the point is there is still a lot up for grabs, with most teams having 14 or 15 matches left in the season there at the top of the Premier League. It's a different story on the other end, though. Have you noticed the relegation battle right now?
Yeah, it's there's a huge gap between safety and the relegation zone.
Yeah, this is surprising.
I'd rather it be closer because it makes it much more interesting when you get like a Sheffield playing a West Brom, because usually no one wants to watch that game because they're like, oh, these are the 2 worst teams in the league. But when it's closer, it makes it so much more interesting to watch because that game it means everything for them because that's who they're fighting against to stay up.
Right, and I think that's something I say to my friends who first get into soccer type of thing, who I meet. I was like, actually, like, it's a whole different style of thing, because you would never, this past season, you'd never want to watch the Cincinnati Bengals play the Houston Texans. Sorry, Darty, with the Bengals coming. It's a fact. But you'd never want to watch that game unless you're one of those teams, because then you're looking just to lose the game, actually, to get a better draft pick. And as a Lions fan, I'm very aware of that fact year after year. But like you mentioned, here you're fighting for survival with these type of matches. And what does survival mean? Well, it means hundreds of millions of dollars in television revenue and split money and stuff like that. And then you're able to pay higher wages, better players type thing, because you go down to the second division. So I agree with you. And right now, just so everyone is on the same page, Fulham's up 2-0 on Everton right now, so they could be at 18 points at the max. It might be still only at 15 though for them. And if they're at 15, West Brom below them even after earning a point against Manchester United today is at 13. Sheffield United in the basement at 11, and then Newcastle, the first spot for safety, in 17th, is at 25. So it's 10 points, 3 matches for a win. That's a large gap already at this point in the season, because And you may be asking, well, why is it the 10-point gap at the top of the table isn't that big of a deal versus the bottom? Well, the bottom teams don't win very often.
Yes.
And so at 10 points, that's 3 wins on the trot, 3 wins plus a draw on the trot for a team like that. And even for Sheffield United, already 14 points from safety. It looks bleak at the bottom. So you're right. We may not have many. And this is a weird year for that. Normally, at least, there's, I want to say, one team that's at the bottom that's done. And then normally the last 2 or at least the last 1 are in play, going to the final weeks of the season, right?
Yeah. Right. I feel like the team that has the best chance to get out of the relegation zone is Fulham right now because they're playing so much better. If you were to watch Fulham at the beginning of the season, they would get absolutely thrashed by the bigger teams. But Fulham is now playing people competitively, and something clicked. Yeah. And you can tell that something clicked. Like right now, they're up 2-0 on Everton. Everton is a pretty good team, as we talked about earlier, which is crazy. Like if this was the beginning of the season, they probably would be down 2-0 instead of up 2-0. So it's just crazy how everything can change.
Yeah, they're
only 7 points back of Newcastle.
Right.
Which is a lot, but it's more manageable than the 12 points that West Brom is back, or the 14 points that Sheffield's back.
Right. Yeah, and they just need some goals. I mean, they're tied for the lowest goals in the entire league with Burnley, but that's just Burnley. That's Burnley football right there. I'd love to try to explain the club of Burnley to some people, just why they're always. They have let's see. Well, okay, they're right up at around the top in terms of goals allowed. City's outpacing everybody with that. So they're right up there. They're in 16th, and they're also tied for the fewest goals scored in the league. I mean, it's just the Burnley experience is just incredible. They should be safe, though, this year as well. But yeah, so Fulham just needs some goals because their defense with only 31 goals allowed isn't terrible. It's not great, but it's not like West Brom, who's given up 55.
Yeah.
in this season, and they're almost level in points. So maybe that'll turn around there for Fulham. And then who knows? I mean, Newcastle, Burnley, and Brighton are all really close together there on points towards the bottom of the table. Is there anything else in the Premier League you would like to discuss? Oh wait, there's one more question I wanted to ask. Is Jose going to last the season at Tottenham?
I'm gonna say yes. He's gonna last the season.
Wow.
I don't know if he's gonna be the manager in the fall, but
okay.
I think he's gonna. Yeah,
I see. Okay,
that's my prediction. We'll see though.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. It's just Jose is Jose, right? I was still stunned when Tottenham decided to hire him. I mean, it just seemed like a pairing that would never occur. But
yeah,
I don't know. They start off really strong, and now they're down, like I said earlier, down to 9th place. But a lot of movement left, though, for sure. Is there anything else in the Premier League we didn't hit that you want to hit?
Yes. Leeds United.
Yes.
They're a very interesting team.
Thank you for bringing them up.
They just got promoted this season, and they are in 11th place. They are 2 points back of Arsenal with a game in hand. They played today and lost to Arsenal, unfortunately. But they are so fun to watch because their thing is, we're just going to score more goals than you. And we don't care how that happens. We're just going to try to score. So they don't really care. They're like the opposite of Burnley, essentially. They just try to outscore you. And it's super fun to watch. And I'm really happy to see Leeds doing well.
Yeah, and I want to say the Leeds United, why I got so excited, brought them up, obviously because of their play style. But their play style is influenced by their manager, Marcelo Bielsa, who is, if you say that, if someone says they're a soccer fan, right? And you say that name to them, and they're like, I've heard of him once or twice, right? Then you're like, okay, this is not that serious of a fan. He is lying. But for the diehards, Marcelo Bielsa, has his handprint. It's almost like at the Nick Saban college coaching tree. He has his hands on everybody, He's influenced everybody, and yet hasn't won the biggest prizes, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, but if you're a student of the game and you care about tactical formation stuff like that, Bielsa has been at the top of it for so long. Whether it's with Bilbao, whether it's with Leeds, the different national teams he's coached in the past. So it's incredible here that he's brought that football, that style of football to the Premier League, because no one's done this before, and for Leeds, and especially for Leeds too. Looking at their goal scorer, stuff like that. Rodrigo, from formerly at Valencia, their prize signing striker in the offseason, only has 3 goals in 18 matches. It's Patrick Bamford, already over 10 goals. That's carrying the line for them. So it's pretty crazy for them there.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so, and I think 11th is right about where they should be, right?
Yeah, I say they deserve to be 11th.
Yeah,
mid-table.
Yeah, so we'll see how they build in the future. It almost could be I think they probably have more potential. I mentioned like how Villa, after coming into the league last year, their resumption in the Premier League, now building up to 8th right now with good players. I mean, Leeds probably have a bigger potential for that, being in the Premier League for the first time in, 20-something years?
Yes.
So we'll see how they build on this year going into next season. But do you want to transition over to Spain for a little bit? Because honestly, this is just kind of settled and makes me sad. But we can talk about this a bit.
Sure.
Okay, so Barcelona made the brilliant My Club, obviously. If you haven't known that yet, I don't know how you wouldn't know that. But new people listen to this every time I kind of restart it. So just make sure. Barcelona My Club, they're in dire straits as a club right now. We don't need to get into all of that. But they made the brilliant sporting decision of letting Luis Suarez leave for free to a direct rival in Atletico Madrid, and now Atletico Madrid are in first place, 8 points clear of Barcelona with a game in hand, and they're only 5 points clear on Madrid, but 2 games in hand of Madrid, so it works out anyway. So they're 8 points clear at the top already, and Luis Suarez is the leading goal scorer in La Liga. At least he was. Messi had a hat trick yesterday, so I'm not sure. I might have to double check that. I'll double check that right now. But anyway, it hurt me in the summer when they did it, and I knew it was happening, and I thought it was stupid because Suarez is still really, really good, obviously. And
yeah, obviously.
Letting him go to Atletico is just, okay, I'm right. So Messi now is on 15 goals. Luis Suarez still on 16 goals, first place for La Liga goal scoring. I mean, could you imagine what would have happened if, like, in the NFL, if, like, the leading... I mean, I guess it was kind of like Tom Brady with the Patriots. But that was,
yeah, essentially.
Yeah, basically. And that's how I actually texted my dad. I felt that Luis Suarez is over there in Atletico just destroying teams while Messi's left alone. Like, it's just... I just don't understand it. It's just... I mean, it's been a trying year as a Barcelona fan, and for people who are... Like, what do you mean, Zach? You watch the Lions go 5-11 every year. So, yeah, but Barcelona's been to the point that if they're not top 2, at least, in even first place, it's a disappointment. And it's very real. They could exit the Champions League in the round of 16 stage. So, that was one thing I was going to make the point earlier, but I wanted to save it for our transition, is that when you talk about City's chances in the Champions League, I mean, you got to think Real Madrid and Barcelona are not at the peak of their powers this season. It's probably the weakest Real Madrid and Barcelona team I've seen in the last 11 years, easily, before Pep Guardiola took over at Barcelona.
100%. 100% agree with that.
And I mean, and I don't want to dump on Atletico because they're a well-run club. You know, I'm terrified to play them every time we play them. But on the same point, you know, Atletico should not be 8 points clear like this, or have the chance to go double-digit points lead here with still this many games to go. It doesn't make sense. So Atletico's won a La Liga title, of course, in the past decade, and it's when Barcelona and Real Madrid both really struggled. It's like just the fact that they're that clear kind of shows that, I don't know, the power, the soccer power of the past decade has been with Spain, and now I think it's shifting to the Premier League being, because the thing you could do is like, well, the Premier League has depth, right? But
yes,
La Liga has the best teams, and now that's not true anymore. Not true whatsoever.
Yes, I agree with that, because last year, or even the year before last year, you would say City and Liverpool, they're just the best. But it's interesting to see Bayern doing so well. So since they're doing so well, I'd probably still say they're the best in the world. But I think 2 and 3 over the last 3-year span, you'd probably have to say City and Liverpool.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't see an argument for anyone else. Maybe PSG because they made it to the Champions League final, but I don't think so because they're in the French league and they don't really have to play any tough opponents in the French league, really.
Yeah. PSG, I mean, it's been my argument with them the last 7 years. I mean, Barcelona, they've been matched up against PSG multiple times in the Champions League. And with the way Barcelona's been playing, they've been doing well in league and they've been doing well. They've been in league recently, but they struggled. They lost to Sevilla 2-0 in the Copa del Rey. First leg last week. They went to extra time in the Copa del Rey before then. So it's been topsy-turvy, which would make me think, oh, Zach, how do you think they're going to do in the Champions League? It's like, well, I mean, they're playing PSG, and yeah, PSG's, you would objectively say, is a better team than Barcelona, but Barcelona have owned PSG in the Champions League, unquestionably. Even when PSG went up 4-0 on them back in it was Neymar's last year, 2016, Barcelona came back and won the second, 6-1, so that's where on Tuesday, am I surprised? I was talking earlier that I don't root for injuries, but, Neymar got injured. It's like, yeah, because PSG just doesn't do well in the Champions League against Barcelona. This is what kind of has seemed to happen in the past. It's almost like I would feel this way to a less of a point with Manchester City, but it was just the same kind of thought process because for a while Barcelona owned Manchester City for whatever reason, and but Manchester City has evolved significantly to the point to where I would not feel that way. PSG to me is like, okay, they have Mbappe and Neymar and Verratti. Same team, same thing. Let's run it back type situation. Am I unreasonable for thinking like that?
No, I think that's perfectly fair. I would never want to play Barcelona in the Champions League solely. I don't care how good Barcelona is or how bad Barcelona is. I don't want to play them in Champions League because historically we're terrible against them. So that's perfectly fair.
Yeah, I mean, Messi picking up a hat trick with 2 outstanding world-class goals right before the match on Tuesday. It probably isn't the greatest look for PSG fans. I don't know who PSG fans are, but I mean, if you're out there, could you an aside? Could you imagine being a PSG fan? Enough teams in La Liga are competitive enough to give Barcelona a game most weeks. Even the bad ones now do, and I know same thing for City. In the Premier League. But PSG, you just walk up, you wake up, you flip on the game at 11 o'clock, you win 4-0, you go to bed. How's that exciting? How's that enjoyable? How's that enjoyable?
I feel like the only thing you live for as a PSG fan is just the Champions League because that's the only thing that's really important to them, I'd say. Because obviously they're exponentially better than anyone else in the French league because the French league's just, at this point, they're just not great. No disrespect to them. They just don't have the firepower that PSG has. So obviously they're expected to blow everyone out in the French league. But when it gets to Champions League, I feel like that's what they live for.
Yeah, that's true. PSG are in second this year in the French league. Did you know that?
I did not. That's crazy. I don't really follow the French league because
of that.
As in the last couple of years, PSG just blows everyone out.
Yeah, they're a point behind Lille. So I don't know. Maybe this isn't a classic PSG side that we're about to face on Tuesday. Now my hopes are getting up for this game. That will just blow them out 3-0 or something. So, yeah, I don't know. And then with Real Madrid too. With them not being the peak team, because you figure, okay, Eden Hazard, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, some of the youth players like Vinicius should step up, and Ramos has been not the best in form, and there's been tension with him as well, and Zidane. I mean, have you been paying closely attention to what's happening in the capital?
I have not, but I've been seeing the results. I'm like, you guys should not be tying or losing to these people. It's not like they're tying Barcelona, that's expected or Atletico, it's expected because they're good. But when you tie people who are not those, or at least the people that are not those teams, it's kind of raising red flags.
Right.
They have 4 draws and 4 losses, which is kind of a lot, in my opinion, because you shouldn't be drawing or losing to those teams, especially when you're Real Madrid.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You just shouldn't. It just shouldn't be that way.
That's like a full season total almost for those 2 clubs, typically.
Yeah, because historically they're just so good and they just kill everyone.
Yeah, I know we talked, and I had texted you way back in the fall. Congratulations on getting Lionel Messi.
Yes. I don't know how I feel about that. Because what he does, like he starts on the right wing, obviously, and he plays more of a 10. Like in the game, they shift.
Yeah.
And that's the same position Kevin de Bruyne plays. And I don't want, at this point in their careers, I would want Kevin de Bruyne over Messi solely because he's younger and he has a higher ceiling.
Wow. So you're saying you don't want the greatest of all time on your team?
That is what I'm saying. Yes, because I think it'll just be too much tension because I don't know. I'd like to see him in the Premier League. And I'd also, if we did not have Kevin de Bruyne, who played the same exact position essentially, like if Messi stayed on the right side, then it would be fine. Like no worries there. But I just don't see that happening because he's too good to just stay on the right side. He should be in the middle. But Kevin de Bruyne is probably the best midfielder in the world. And
Right.
I think they play the same position. I could see a clashing, and I would not want either of them to get mad because obviously when you're two of the best players in the world, Messi obviously is better. I don't think anyone would argue that, but I just don't want to see the clashing because I'm a huge Kevin de Bruyne fan.
Right.
So
For sure.
I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense because Messi is now, he's not the out and out 9 like he used to be. He plays much more with not with his back to goal, but his chest facing goal and going downhill and trying to find those outlet balls that Kevin de Bruyne does find. So I get that. I'm just giving you crap, and now I'm definitely putting that in the episode notes.
Yeah. But if he could take Mahrez out of the team, I would be a fan. So I don't know. If Pep will figure it out, I'm sure he will, because it is looking right now that we're going to get him. So I don't know.
Just a drive-by shooting there on Riyad Mahrez out of nowhere.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
I don't think a lot of people are there at City. Honestly, he's struggled a lot there at Manchester City.
He's not very aggressive, in my opinion. He's very passive. So against the big teams, he doesn't really do much. Like his whole thing is like cutting to his left foot and shooting it back post. But like everyone in the world knows he's going to go on his left foot because his left foot's just so good. He's going to cut back in for his left foot and shoot it. So I don't know. And he doesn't really dribble at people like he used to. I could do without him.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Well, it's also not like how Arjen Robben used to do it, where Robben, you knew exactly where it does, and now you have 5-minute YouTube compilations of him scoring the same exact goal hundreds of times over and over again that he was just so good with it. Mahrez is not on that level.
I feel like he's not aggressive. Like Robben, he was so aggressive. He'd just go and do his thing. But Mahrez is so passive in comparison. I don't know. It's not my thing.
Right. I get what you mean. So, and speaking of Arjen Robben, his former club, Bayern Munich, as expected, on top of the Bundesliga. There's not too much I want to cover with this. I just checking in around Europe here with Champions League coming up. Leipzig, playing Liverpool this week, are in second place, so the rise of RB Leipzig continues. And then, I don't know, I think this is more, I think, what I want to talk about. Schalke are in bottom of Bundesliga with 1 win. Do you remember the days of our youth, Joe, when Schalke would be in Champions League quarterfinals just trying to scratch out a win against Real Madrid, and now they look like they will be relegated to the second Bundesliga? We can all pay a moment of respect to Schalke 04.
Very sad. Very sad. I think it's better when they're in the top flight German league.
It won't be anymore. And also, just real quick, and I'll after this I'll leave you the floor for anything else that I missed that you want to discuss. AC Milan are winning Serie A out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is insane. I would never have guessed that.
So Juventus obviously have Andre Pirlo, taking over there in fourth. Kind of almost like a reset year. I feel like for Juventus, still in the Champions League. Obviously, Inter in second. And by the way, Zlatan Ibrahimovic of 38 years old is averaging more than a goal a game in Serie A, 14 goals in 12 matches.
That's like some LeBron stuff.
He's immortal.
Yeah, it's just not right.
So, Good for the resurgence of AC Milan, though. Soccer is more fun when AC Milan's in the Champions League and playing really well. Because we grew up almost when they started on their downswing. They were still in Champions League and stuff like that. And we've it's been a while since I think I've seen an actual really good AC Milan side.
Yeah, it should be really interesting to see what they do, especially next season, to see if they can make a big Champions League run.
Yep.
Who knows?
Soccer's fun. I agree. What I miss, or what do you want to take the rest of the show into the discussion with?
I do not know. Actually,
well, how about this?
Covered everything.
Let's get some picks for these Champions League matches. Cause I don't know the next time you'll be on. We could get the round of 16 out of the way here, and you don't have to go in depth, but just picks. All right. Who makes it in Leipzig, Liverpool?
I'm going to say Liverpool.
Not confident on it, though.
Not confident. I think it'll be a fantastic 2-game series, but I'm going to say Liverpool based off of the experience that they have.
Yeah, I agree, too. 100%. Barcelona, PSG.
I'm going to say PSG.
I'm going to disagree.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, maybe that's what the club needs to reset. I'm going to take Barcelona, and if you asked me before the Neymar injury, I probably would have gone the other way because his second leg is in doubt too. But I'm going to say that Barcelona, with absolutely one center back, actually figures it out. That's another thing. We've been playing Frankie de Haan at center back the past 3 games. I don't know if you knew that. So if you see that,
definitely out of position.
If you see that later today, don't be surprised. Porto, Juventus.
I have to go Juventus. I don't think Ronaldo's going to lose in the round of 16.
It's been a tough year for Juventus, though. I'll pick them though for Weston McKennie, the American boy.
Yes.
Okay, Sevilla, Dortmund.
I have to go Sevilla. I don't know. I think that's controversial. I don't know.
Dortmund's
Erling Haaland,
yeah,
and Jadon Sancho, and they have a lot of bigger names, but Sevilla has been playing well, and Dortmund not so much.
Yeah, Dortmund's that's the thing we didn't necessarily touch on, but Dortmund's been struggling this season. They're only in, they're in 6th place in Bundesliga, which is not
crazy for them.
So yeah, no, and
it should be top 3.
Yep, easily.
Usually.
And having watched Sevilla dismantle Barcelona the other day, I will take them as well. Okay, this one should be pretty easy. We're both going to have Bayern over Lazio, right?
Yes.
Atletico, Chelsea.
I have to go Atletico.
I think so too, just because I don't think Chelsea has it figured out, although I wouldn't be surprised because these games are next week, February 23rd, 24th, this one and the Bayern one. And then it's another 3 weeks until the second leg in March. So it wouldn't surprise me if by the middle of March, Thomas Tuchel has figured out a big rotation with Chelsea. So if I'm wrong, that's why I'm wrong. I'm going to say it now. But with the data I have available right now, I have to pick Atletico.
Me too.
City 100%. Over Mönchengladbach?
Yes, that's what I think. I definitely hope so.
Okay, and then last one, Atlanta. I think that's how you say that, versus Real Madrid.
Real Madrid.
I want to go with Atlanta because they're such a fun team to watch in the Serie A, but it's Real Madrid, right?
Yes. My thing with Atalanta, or however you say it, they lost Papu Gomez.
Yeah.
He was very good for them.
That is true.
So that's my thing.
That's very true.
That's why I'm picking Madrid. And they're Madrid. They have the experience. Zidane's won the tournament multiple times as a coach. So I'm going with them in that matchup.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll just take them because I hate myself and I don't want to see Real Madrid get further, but I just feel like that's what's going to happen. So there we go. But yeah. Okay, so there you go. So if we get those wrong, don't yell at us because I don't know. It's been such a weird season overall with everything, and obviously with all the sports, not just soccer, with COVID and such like that. But there you go. So happy to have the Champions League back, of course. and all of that. And who knows, we'll get you back on here soon enough, whether it's for soccer or something else or UFC or whatever, or some other podcasts, because I know you're going through your virtual teaching right now and you're having lots of fun.
Lots of fun. Yes. I love teaching AI kids. The best thing ever.
I didn't mean to mention that, but you sent me that video and I was just like, what is this? What is going on right now?
So basically what I'm doing is we have this simulation. So some dude controls computer generated students, and it's super weird because they all have the same voice. And you're supposed to teach them and like work on different things from a teaching standpoint. And all the kids sound the same, and there's like a delay because it's on Zoom, and it's a huge mess. But I mean, it's probably the best thing we can do at this moment, being safe and everything.
Right. For sure. It's just the pandemic's forced us to adapt in a lot of weird ways. And I mean, who knew you would ever, trying to be a teacher, be doing that type of situation like that. That's insane.
Yes.
But we will persevere. We will push through. And that is what Barcelona will do to PSG. And that is how I'm going to wrap up the show, because I cannot get more poetic than that. Joe, thank you for coming on. As always, tons of fun. We'll get you back on here soon.
For sure. Thank you for having me.